Ubuntu. Ubuntu is the Linux distro most people try first, and for good reason. It's based on Debian, backed by Canonical, and currently holds around 33.9% of the Linux desktop market, making it the most popular distro by far. If Linux were a car, Ubuntu would be the Honda Civic, reliable, everywhere, and probably parked in your neighbor's driveway. It ships with the GNOME desktop by default, runs Wayland, and has increasingly smooth NVIDIA support, so gaming and graphical apps don't feel like punishment. Out of the box, Ubuntu just works, which is why beginners, developers, and general users flock to it. You don't need to tweak dozens of config files to get a usable desktop. Just install, reboot, and hope your cat doesn't walk across the keyboard. Community support is huge. Tutorials, forums, and documentation are everywhere. There's almost no problem you'll run into that someone hasn't already posted a guide for online. That's part of why Ubuntu became the gateway drug to Linux. It's forgiving, it's friendly, and has a safety net for mistakes and for your inevitable accidental sudo rm-rf. There's basically an Ubuntu for every personality type. Kubuntu for the KDE desktop, Xubuntu for something lighter, Lubuntu for ancient hardware that refuses to die, and Ubuntu Studio for creative professionals. The catch? Snap packages. Canonical's push for snaps divides opinions harder than pineapple on pizza. Some love automatic updates and sandboxing. Others hate slower launch times, the closed backend, and the fact that even when you try to install something normally, Ubuntu quietly installs the Snap version instead. It's like having a perfectly good Honda Civic, but Canonical insisting you drive it with training wheels you didn't ask for. Still, Ubuntu is dependable, beginner-friendly, and a strong foundation for learning Linux without constantly wanting to throw your computer out the window. Debian. Debian is Ubuntu's parent and the distro that made Linux feel serious. Since 1993, it's been famous for being ultra-stable. Back then, Linux was mostly for hackers and hobbyists, but Debian quietly proved you could run a system reliably for years without crashes. It powers everything from servers and stock exchanges to particle accelerators, the kind of places where a mistake could cost millions or make scientists cry. Debian uses .deb packages and a rigorous testing cycle, so updates are slow but rock solid. You get 5+ years of support, security-focused releases, and a system that just works. Its software might not be bleeding edge, but that's kind of the charm. Remember the days of installing Linux from a CD-ROM, waiting for packages to compile, and praying nothing broke? Debian survived that era and still thrives today. Perfect for servers, production machines, or anyone who values reliability over bells and whistles. If Linux were a car, Debian would be a Toyota Corolla, boring, unassuming, but somehow still running when every flashy sports car from the 90s has been abandoned in a junkyard. The catch? Old software versions and a learning curve for beginners. But once you get used to it, Debian rewards patience with years of trouble-free computing. It's also entirely community-driven with no corporate overlord pulling strings, which means updates happen when they're ready, not when a marketing team says so. Linux Mint. Linux Mint is what happens when someone installs Ubuntu and says, "This is great, but can we make it feel like Windows again?" Based on Ubuntu, Mint keeps the strong foundation, but swaps in the Cinnamon desktop, which looks instantly familiar to anyone coming from Windows. You get a proper start menu, taskbar, system tray, and that classic bottom panel layout that just feels right. No hunting for apps, no learning a new workflow. It's consistently one of the top 3 most popular Linux distros, and for good reason. Mint focuses on simplicity and usability. It removes Ubuntu's snap packages and leans toward Flatpak instead, which wins it a lot of fans who prefer more control and fewer surprises. Out of the box, Mint includes media codecs and practical tools, so you're not stuck Googling how to play an MP3 in 2024. Perfect for Windows switchers, students, seniors, or anyone who wants Linux without the culture shock. The learning curve is basically flat. Install it and you're already comfortable. It feels less like switching operating systems and more like your PC just had a makeover. The catch? It's not bleeding edge. Mint prioritizes stability over the latest shiny features. But that's also why people love it. It's the people's choice of Linux. Familiar, dependable, and surprisingly polished without trying too hard. Fedora. Fedora is what happens when stability meets experimentation and they agree to move fast. Sponsored by Red Hat, now under IBM, Fedora acts as the upstream testing ground for RHEL, Red Hat Enterprise Linux. In simple terms, new technologies land in Fedora first. If they survive there, they graduate to the enterprise world. Fedora runs some of the latest Linux kernels and software with a predictable 6-month release cycle. That means new features show up quickly. New GNOME versions? Usually first here. New kernel improvements? Already installed. If you like living slightly ahead of the curve without going full chaos mode, Fedora is your playground. Security is serious too. Fedora enables SE Linux by default, which adds strong mandatory access control. It's powerful and enterprise-grade, though occasionally it feels like your OS is double-checking your homework before letting you open a file. Perfect for developers, programmers, and tech enthusiasts who want modern tools without jumping into pure DIY territory like Arch. It strikes a balance between cutting-edge innovation and reasonable stability. Not reckless, just ambitious. The catch? Frequent updates mean more maintenance. Every 6 months, you're upgrading. It's not difficult, but it's not set it and forget it either. Analogy-wise, Fedora is Red Hat's experimental garage. This is where new engines get tested before they're put into corporate fleets. Even Linus Torvalds, the creator of Linux, uses Fedora. If the person who built the kernel trusts it for daily use, that's a strong endorsement. Arch Linux. Arch Linux is the distro that turns installing an operating system into a personal project. It's famous for the meme, BTW, I use Arch. Because if someone runs Arch, you'll somehow find out. They'll tell you, probably within the first 5 minutes of meeting them. Arch isn't based on Ubuntu or Debian. It stands on its own and follows a rolling release model, meaning you always get the latest packages without waiting for big version jumps. New kernel? It's coming. Updated desktop environment? Already there. Instead of preloading everything, Arch gives you a minimal base system and lets you build it exactly how you want. Desktop environments, drivers, services, you choose all of it. Nothing extra, nothing hidden. The installation process is basically a rite of passage. You boot into a terminal, partition drives manually, configure your bootloader, and pray you didn't typo a critical command. It can take hours the first time, but finishing it feels like earning a black belt in Linux. Perfect for advanced users, Linux enthusiasts, and customization addicts who want total control. If you enjoy tweaking configs, optimizing performance, and knowing exactly what's running on your machine, Arch feels empowering instead of overwhelming. Why it is legendary? 2 words, Arch Wiki. It's one of the most detailed Linux documentation resources on the planet. Even users of other distros secretly rely on it. Ubuntu broke? Check the Arch Wiki. Fedora acting weird? Arch Wiki probably has the answer. The catch? The learning curve is steep. Mistakes are part of the experience. Arch doesn't hold your hand. It hands you the tools and says, good luck. And if you mess it up, you'll just reinstall it and try again, because that's what Arch users do. Quick question, are you team easy install or team build it yourself? Drop it in the comments. And if you're learning something new, hit the like button. It genuinely helps the channel. Kali Linux. Kali Linux is the distro that instantly makes people think you're about to hack into the Pentagon. In reality, it's a professional cybersecurity platform based on Debian, built specifically for penetration testing and security research. It comes packed with over 600 pre-installed security tools, including heavy hitters like Nmap, Metasploit, and Wireshark, network scanning, vulnerability testing, password auditing, digital forensics. It's all there, ready to go the moment you boot it up. No hunting for packages, no setup marathons, just tools everywhere. Perfect for ethical hackers, cybersecurity professionals, students in security programs, and penetration testers who need a ready-to-use lab environment. Kali exists for legal security testing and research. Companies use it to find weaknesses before real attackers do. It's less movie hacker and more corporate security audit at 9 a.m. Why does it exist? Because modern systems are complex, and testing them properly requires serious tools. Kali standardizes that toolkit so professionals don't have to build everything from scratch. Here's the reality check. Kali has become a meme in the Linux community because every kid who watches one episode of Mr. Robot thinks downloading Kali makes them a hacker. They run Nmap on their neighbor's Wi-Fi router once, see a wall of text scroll across the screen, and suddenly feel like they're in the CIA. They update their bio to penetration tester, change their desktop wallpaper to something green and matrix looking, and start wearing a hoodie indoors. Meanwhile, they have no idea what half the tools actually do. They just like that it looks cool when they open a terminal in front of people. The catch? This is not a daily driver. It's not designed for gaming, schoolwork, or casual browsing. Using Kali as your main OS is like driving a SWAT truck to the grocery store. Possible? Sure. Necessary? Absolutely not. OpenSUSE. OpenSUSE is one of those distros that doesn't scream for attention, but quietly flexes serious engineering. Backed by SUSE, a major enterprise Linux company, it blends community freedom with corporate-level polish. The cool part? It comes in 2 flavors. Tumbleweed is a rolling release, always up to date, fast-moving, and ideal if you like the newest kernels and software without reinstalling every year. Leap is the stable branch, predictable, enterprise-aligned, and built on the same foundation as SUSE Linux Enterprise. You basically choose between fast and steady. One of OpenSUSE's biggest strengths is YAST, its powerful control center. Network settings, users, firewall, software, all manageable from one organized interface. It feels less like tinkering and more like system administration with a dashboard. Then there's Snapper, which automatically creates file system snaps. Break your system? Roll it back like nothing happened. It's basically a built-in undo button for your OS. It's also famous for an excellent KDE Plasma experience. Polished, fast, and surprisingly refined. Perfect for system admins, developers, and enterprise users who want control without chaos. Why underrated? Smaller community compared to Ubuntu or Fedora. But the tools are incredibly powerful. It just doesn't have the hype machine behind it. If Linux were cars, OpenSUSE would be German engineering. Precise, structured, well-designed, and quietly confident. It's built better than you think. Pop! OS. Pop! OS is what happens when a hardware company decides Linux should actually feel optimized. Built by System76, a US-based computer manufacturer, Pop! OS is based on Ubuntu, but tuned for performance, especially on modern hardware. It's not just a reskin, it's engineered with purpose. Right out of the box, it offers automatic GPU driver support, including separate NVIDIA and AMD builds. No hunting for drivers. No black screens after install. For gamers, that alone feels like a miracle. Performance tweaks and clean system defaults make it one of the smoothest Linux experiences for gaming today. It also features auto-tiling window management, which lets your windows snap and arrange intelligently without extra tools. Developers and multitaskers love this. The new Cosmic Desktop, System76's own environment, pushes things further with a modern, minimal design that feels polished and intentional. Perfect for gamers, creative professionals, streamers, and developers who want performance without hours of setup. Why is it hot right now? Because it's arguably one of the best gaming experiences on Linux, while still looking clean and modern. It feels premium without being complicated. Here's a fun fact. Pop! OS became internet famous in 2021 when Linus Sebastian from Linus Tech Tips tried installing Steam and accidentally nuked his entire desktop. He typed, "Yes, do as I say," and the system removed essential packages, breaking everything. It was a packaging bug, and System76 fixed it fast, but the internet never forgot. Now, Pop! OS is both a cautionary tale and proof that even polished distros can have bad days. The catch? It's closely tied to System76's vision and hardware ecosystem. You're buying into their direction. Manjaro. Manjaro takes the power of Arch Linux and makes it approachable. It's Arch-based, but instead of dropping you into a terminal and wishing you luck, it gives you a proper graphical installer, pre-configured desktops, and a system that boots into something usable on day one. Like Arch, it follows a rolling release model, so you're always getting fresh software. The difference is that Manjaro holds updates for extra testing before pushing them out. You still get modern kernels, drivers, and desktop environments, just with a small safety buffer so your system doesn't explode at random. It also makes AUR, Arch User Repository, access simple. That means thousands of community-maintained packages are just a click away. Want niche software, experimental tools, something oddly specific? It's probably in the AUR. Perfect for users who want Arch's flexibility and bleeding-edge software without spending hours building everything manually. It's popular because it balances new features with some stability, which is rare in rolling release land. The catch? Arch purists don't consider it real Arch. It automates too much, smooths too many edges, and removes some of the DIY struggle that hardcore users secretly enjoy. To them, using Manjaro is like saying you climbed a mountain but took the gondola halfway up. Still counts, but you'll never earn the same bragging rights. MX Linux. MX Linux is proof that you don't need flashy branding to win people over. Based on Debian stable, it blends rock-solid reliability with surprising efficiency. On idle, it can use around 700 megabytes of RAM with the XFCE desktop, which means even that old laptop collecting dust in your closet suddenly has a second life. Despite not being a household name, MX Linux often sits near the top of distro watch rankings, quietly outperforming bigger, louder distros. A big reason is its MX Tools suite, a collection of practical utilities that make system management simple without drowning you in complexity. From driver installers to snapshot tools, it gives you power without demanding you become a sysadmin overnight. Perfect for older computers, minimalists, or anyone who wants Debian stability with a bit more polish and convenience. It's lightweight but not stripped down. You still get a full-featured desktop, usually XFCE by default, tuned to be fast and responsive. Why is it loved? Because it hits that rare sweet spot, lightweight and feature-rich at the same time. It runs smoothly on modest hardware but doesn't feel bare bones. The catch? Less name recognition compared to Ubuntu or Fedora. It doesn't have flashy marketing or a giant corporate sponsor behind it, but that's also part of its charm. MX Linux is built by people who care about making a good distro, not making headlines. And that's the Linux universe. From beginner-friendly Ubuntu to DIY Arch. From enterprise powerhouses to lightweight champions. There's no single best distro, just the one that fits you. So, which one are you running? And are you brave enough to switch? If you enjoyed this breakdown, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. We're breaking down confusing tech every week. No boring stuff, just straight facts and personality. Now here's the thing. You just learned about the operating systems that run your computer. But what about the languages that power the software on them? Python, C++, Java, JavaScript. If those sound like random words instead of actual tools, you're not alone. That's exactly what we're covering next in Every Programming Language Explained. We'll break down what each one does, why it matters, and which one you should actually learn. No gatekeeping, no nonsense. Click the video on screen right now, and I'll see you there.